Hey everyone, and welcome to This Explainer. Okay, I want you to start off today by doing something just a little bit unusual for me. Just close your eyes for a brief moment. Listen to your surroundings. Whatever you hear right now. Maybe it's the rumble of traffic, the wind outside, people talking in the next room, or even just the low hum of your computer fan or refrigerator. Just take a second and really register that ambient noise of everyday life on the surface. Now imagine absolutely all of that is just gone. And I don't mean quiet or peaceful. I mean entirely swallowed up and crushed into nothingness by the sheer weight of the ocean. Today, we're descending into the deepest, most hostile, and honestly most mysterious environments on our entire planet. We are journeying into absolute darkness to explore a place that doesn't just take away your light, it literally takes your sound. So let's start with the anatomy of a trench, these massive geological wounds in the earth. Before we dive into the crazy physics of the deep, we kind of need to know how these abysses are even formed in the first place, right? So our planet isn't just a single solid shell. It's a giant puzzle of massive tectonic plates that are constantly shifting at just a few centimeters a year. But when two of these massive plates collide deep under the ocean, subduction happens. One plate is literally forced to slide beneath the other. And as it goes down, the ocean floor bends, cracks, and ultimately tears completely open. It creates a colossal wound in the earth, a trench. These are, quite simply, the deepest places our planet has ever made. And when we say deep, we're talking about a scale that's honestly hard to wrap your head around. The Mariana Trench in the Pacific Ocean reaches down nearly 11 kilometers from the surface to the floor. To put that massive number into perspective, if you were to drop a standard heavy metal ball bearing into the water right at the surface, it wouldn't just take a few minutes to hit the bottom. No, it would take over an hour of continuous falling through the water column, 1 full hour of sinking through ever-darkening water, crushing pressure, and an absolute suffocating silence. Moving on to the disappearance of sound, and diving into what's called the SOFAR channel. As we go down those 11 kilometers, the normal physical rules of the world literally start to warp in some fascinating ways. Up near the surface level, under one comfortable atmosphere of pressure, sound moves incredibly well through water. Actually, it moves so well that whales can communicate hundreds of kilometers across entire ocean basins. But down at the trench floor, the near-freezing temperatures, the water density, and the unimaginable pressure all combine to create what scientists call the SOFAR channel. That stands for the Sound Fixing and Ranging Channel. Down here, sound waves don't bounce freely. They get trapped, they get bent and channeled. And at the very bottom, sound simply disappears. It's absorbed by the dense water and swallowed by the pressure, lost entirely. Scientists actually put this to the test. They dropped these super sensitive underwater microphones, called hydrophones, all the way down into the Mariana Trench. And the audio they recovered was described as the closest thing to true silence ever captured on Earth. But, as the researchers noted, it wasn't a peaceful, zen-like silence. It was a heavy, pressurized, crushing silence. It's the sound of an environment that was, frankly, never meant for anything with ears. Next up, crushing pressure, or the sheer weight of the deep. That hostile silence we just talked about, it's driven by one inescapable physical reality. Just how intense is this environment? Well, right now, sitting in your room, you're experiencing 1 atmosphere of air pressure. You don't even feel it. At the bottom of the trench, the pressure is over 1,000 atmospheres. That is the equivalent of 50 jumbo jets stacked on top of you on every single square centimeter of your body, all at the same time. A standard military submarine would be crushed like an empty aluminum soda can way before it ever reached the bottom. Biology as we know it should be instantly compressed into absolute nothingness. And yet, life is here. Honestly, this is probably one of the most staggering biological facts on our entire planet. In an environment defined by thousands of atmospheres of pressure, total blackness, and freezing temperatures, life, as it always does, somehow finds a way. Which brings us to the biology of the abyss, life in absolute darkness. Turns out the bottom of the trench is absolutely not a dead zone. The creatures down here aren't just struggling or barely squeaking by, they're actively thriving. Take amphipods, for example. These are tiny, highly active, shrimp-like crustaceans. They have eyes adapted to total darkness and almost completely translucent bodies, and they're everywhere. They swarm the trench floor in the thousands, basically acting as the ultimate deep-sea cleanup crew. They scavenge whatever bits of organic matter fall from the sunlit ocean miles and miles above. It's like the ocean's little gift to the darkness. But wait, it gets better. It's not just tiny crustaceans. We also have this incredible creature, the snailfish. This is perhaps the deepest living fish ever recorded, found swimming gracefully at over 8,000 meters below the surface. It looks super ghostly, pale, translucent, and almost entirely boneless. So how exactly does a fish survive the weight of 50 jumbo jets? Well, first off, it has no swim bladder. Normal fish use a gas-filled bladder to float, but down here that would instantly collapse. Second, it has a flexible skull that bends rather than shatters under the weight of the water. And third, its body is absolutely packed with a specialized chemical called TMAO. This chemical physically stabilizes the fish's protein so they can actually keep functioning under pressure that would instantly destroy normal biological tissue. To the snailfish, this extreme, terrifying environment isn't scary at all. It's simply home. Let's zoom out a bit to look at a global network of other great trenches. You know, the Mariana Trench gets all the glory, but there's this whole hidden geography beneath the ocean. We have the Tonga Trench in the South Pacific, incredibly remote and nearly as deep at 10,882 meters. Then there's the Philippine Trench. This one is absolutely legendary because back in 1960, the Bathyscaphe Trieste made the deepest crewed descent in human history right here. Two men in a tiny, freezing metal sphere went all the way down into the abyss. And when they finally hit the bottom, they looked out their tiny window and, unbelievably, saw a flatfish, just swimming there, totally calm. And we also have the Puerto Rico Trench, the deepest point in the Atlantic at over 8,300 meters, sitting right next to the island of Puerto Rico, like a sprawling city built on the edge of a sheer cliff. Together, these form a dramatic, dark, unseen landscape of mountains and deep valleys. Now for our final stretch, the great unknown and returning to the surface. As we kind of mentally make our way back up from the freezing trench floor, it's honestly wild to think about our achievements above Earth. We've driven robotic rovers across the surface of Mars. We've sent humans to the moon 6 times. We have mapped out distant, ancient galaxies. But beneath the surface of our own planet, the deepest trenches hold on to their secrets really, really tightly. Almost every single time we manage to drop a tiny, lit submersible down to a trench floor, it illuminates something entirely new, a species we've never cataloged, a chemical process we didn't think was possible, or rock formations that literally force us to rewrite geology textbooks. Get this, of all these massive, globe-spanning ocean trenches, we have explored maybe 1%. That means 99% of the deepest places on our planet remains completely unseen, unmapped, and entirely unknown. We literally know more about the dead rocks floating out in space than we do about the living abysses right here on Earth. But right now, our journey brings us back upwards. The sound returns. As our imaginary submersible rises from those crushing depths, the physics begin to normalize. The pressure eases off. The absolute blackness slowly turns to a faint, deep midnight blue, and then to a lighter, more familiar blue. And slowly, the silence breaks. You'd start to hear a low hum, the creak of shifting water, and eventually, the distant, echoing call of a breaching whale communicating across the ocean. Life speaking to life, in a language the deep trench floor has never and will never hear. Which leaves us with this one big final thought to chew on. Right now, as you're watching this explainer, there is a ghostly snailfish swimming happily through absolute darkness and crushing silence, perfectly at home in an environment we view as completely impossible. The trench doesn't need us to discover it for it to be extraordinary. It's been doing its thing for millions of years. But I want to leave you with this question. If an entirely alien, thriving world exists in the mere 1% of the abyss we've actually managed to see, what else is waiting for us down there in the remaining 99% of the dark? Thanks so much for joining me on this deep dive, and keep your curiosity alive.